And we're back with the second half. This is attorney Joe Flores presenting What If a Nurse is a Criminal Defendant? And we are posting this on not only on YouTube, you can go to youtube.com, type in nurse as a criminal defendant, and you can also put in search term Joe Flores and you can get it. And while we're at it on this seminar, keep in mind, if you have any questions while you're watching this, you could always email me at joe@flotuslawfirm.com or calling my office, 361-887-8670. Keep in mind, this does not constitute legal advice. Every state is different. Every jurisdiction is different. Therefore, keep in mind that we're going to have the issue of different jurisdictions handle things differently. And on top of that, we're looking at federal law. We're going to be talking about that. That's more uniform, but there are different jurisdictions. And the issue always comes to a nurse's mind, well, I'm barely getting by, especially in this economic climate. Many nurses are saying, I can't afford a high-dollar attorney. I can't afford to pay somebody $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. First of all, to reassure you, many attorneys are very reasonable in their fees. Not everybody is out there to really sock it to a nurse, especially a fellow nurse like myself. I've been in the trenches. I've been there, a nurse for 20 years. I understand that nurses don't make a huge amount of money. We all have children. We all have responsibilities. We all have mortgages. And those go in crisis mode when you get in a situation that you feel that you can't get out of, whether it's criminal prosecution or it's going to potentially lead to it through peer review. We want to be very careful and keep that in mind, that don't let the financial aspect stop you from getting representation or invoking your right to a lawyer. One of the things that I want to underline is that if you can't afford one, under Miranda, we've seen it a lot on TV, Miranda was a case, Supreme Court case, involved where a Hispanic man was detained. And this gentleman was not read his rights. A confession was gotten out from him, and that's why the case law developed. The United States Supreme Court held in Miranda that you have to read the person's certain rights, and those rights are right to attorney, right to remain silent, also that any statements that you say can and will be used against you. We've heard Miranda over and over again, and everybody on TV always says they didn't Mirandize him, and they've converted that word to a verb, to Mirandize somebody. So that's very important. Was he read his rights? And often the rights can be read down at the station house before interrogation. And we have to keep that in mind, that, the Miranda rights can be read at any time. So say you can't afford an attorney. What is a public defender? Well, a public defender, and we're going to talk about the myths of a public defender. A public defender usually works for a public defender's office, but some jurisdictions also get people that are in the private sector, attorneys that like to help out or take appointments, and they also can take on these kinds of cases. The media, once again, and TV land out there, always say public defender, if you get one, you're not going to get a fair shake. Invariably, every TV show I've ever seen, the public defender is going to do a shoddy job compared to the high-priced mouthpiece that you hire. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a lie. That is wrong. And that's the strong words that I used. I'm underlining it. I have worked in the federal system. The best lawyers, ladies and gentlemen, the best that I've seen are federal public defenders. And why? In that system, when you're standing in front of a federal judge, you better be prepared. And let me tell you, these people have more criminal experience. Me, as a federal, privately retained federal attorney that has had several years of experience in the federal system, I have gone to the federal public defender's office and consulted with them on cases because they're in the trenches every day. So often what you have is these individuals saying, a public defender is not going to represent me zealously. Well, that is not exactly true. It's strong words that I used, but I want to underline that often they do a fantastic job, and the people themselves who say that the public defender don't, they are misguided and they are wrong, because I've dealt in criminal law for many years, and I have to underline and say that those people do an excellent job. And and every attorney is held to a standard where you have to represent your client zealously. And if not, you're subject to your license being revoked or suspended as an attorney. So keep that in mind. So who's eligible? Well, you have to fill out an affidavit of indigency. In many jurisdictions, you fill out paperwork. We've talked about you being arrested, or a nurse being arrested, and you've made bail. You've got to show up to court. So you've scrambled to get an attorney. You go to arraignment or docket call, and they say, "Are you guilty or not guilty?" That's all we want to know. Oftentimes somebody who's not familiar with the criminal justice system is going to say, "Now wait a minute, I didn't do it," and the judge is going to say, "I don't want to hear any of that. What I want to hear is, are you guilty or not guilty? Are you pleading guilty, or are you going to take it to trial?" And that's all I want to hear from you today. And that's the arraignment. Many times at that time they determine, can you afford an attorney? And a lot of judges are going to think RNs, LVNs make big bucks. LPNs, they make big bucks and they can afford an attorney. If you are in dire financial straits, you need to let that court know right away. You need to let somebody in that court know right away, and you need to let the district attorney know, I can't afford an attorney. And then they determine who is going to get a public defender or not. So that's usually how that works. You sign a sworn statement that you can't afford to pay an attorney, and one is assigned to you. Or sometimes you can invoke it depending on your jurisdiction while you're being interrogated by the police or about to be interrogated, and you say, I want to remain silent. I don't want to be I don't want to make any statements that can be used to prosecute me. And when you invoke it there, that can happen. But again, make sure you get an experienced attorney. Often people say, well, I want a pit bull. How many times have I heard that? That not just nurses, but I want somebody who's going to fight for me, and I want a pit bull. Be very careful what you ask for, because there's a lot of art and compromise, and there's a lot of negotiation that goes on that the person that's a layman that doesn't have a law degree doesn't understand. And I'll be more specific. A lot of times I've heard it invariably. Somebody come to me, they've gotten rid of 2 or 3 lawyers, and they owe all kinds of money everywhere, and they come to me and they say, and we're talking in a criminal case, and say, that lawyer sold me down the river, the one before you. That lawyer didn't fight for me. Ladies and gentlemen, the hackles on my neck usually stand up. I get a little bit weird about it, and I say, this person's gone to 3 attorneys. This person has said that they are not being fought for, and that the lawyer sold them down the river. I say to myself, am I going to take this case when we have somebody that's going to be a problem client? I mean, we just have to be honest. A lot of people are influenced by the media. They see the media and they think that a lawyer has to be jumping up and down on the table, Al Pacino, justice for all, and be a pit bull to represent them. Ladies and gentlemen, that can be sometimes the worst thing you have. You have to have somebody that is aggressive, that is assertive, but at the same time can negotiate and compromise. You have attorneys that are in the criminal justice system day in, day out, whether it's a federal prosecutor or a state prosecutor, and they have to deal with them every day. If they are not liked by the federal prosecutor, if they are not liked by the district attorney, and they have a reputation of being a cutthroat or being somebody that doesn't get along, guess what? If they have a lot of evidence against you, they're not going to give you a good deal. Many times the district attorney has all of this discretion, whether to prosecute or whether to go on with or dismiss it. But a lot of it turns on the facts, the evidence, but also the attorney you're with. If the attorney you're with is being rude, ugly, dismissive with the DA or with the prosecutor, and often these are young attorneys that have just gotten out of law school, that are learning the ropes and are district attorneys, and if your attorney's a condescending pit bull, guess what? They're going to go to their boss and they're going to say, Mr. Jones, the attorney for Nurse X, is a real jerk. And this is reality. I'm giving you the dime store tour of what the criminal justice system is really about.